All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a completely new kind of power, one that can silence dissent not with a bang, but with a whisper of energy you can't even see. So I want you to imagine this. A huge crowd is gathered, they're there to make their voices heard. Then all of a sudden, people just start to leave. They feel this unbearable urge to just flee. But here's the thing, there's no smoke, no sound, no visible threat at all. The protest just dissolves. Now, this isn't some science fiction movie. This is the reality of a new kind of weapon. You know, for centuries, the streets have been the stage where democracy plays out. But what happens when some invisible hand can just clear that stage whenever it wants? Public assembly is basically the pressure valve of a free society. It's the most visible, tangible way for people to stand up and demand change. Yeah, it's messy, it's loud, but it is absolutely essential. And it's that very physical presence that these new weapons are designed to completely erase. And this is where the whole game changes. We're moving way beyond things like batons and shields. We're entering an era of remote control. An era where crowds can be managed from a distance, with no lasting physical marks, and, this is the most chilling part, with complete and total deniability. Okay, so what is this technology? How on earth do you weaponize something you can't even see? Well, the Department of Defense has a really clear definition for it. Unlike a bullet, which uses kinetic force, it physically hits something, a directed energy weapon, or DEW, uses focused energy. So think things like lasers, high-powered microwaves, that kind of stuff. The difference here is just stark. A bullet is obvious, right? It's a physical object, it leaves a physical trace. But directed energy is the exact opposite. It moves at the speed of light, its beam is usually invisible, and it can be designed to leave absolutely no evidence behind. That makes it, well, the perfect tool for covert action. The flagship of this new arsenal is called the Active Denial System, or ADS. And this isn't just some idea in a lab, it's a fully developed and deployed weapon. The early versions were massive, but the technology has now been shrunk down enough to be mounted on standard military vehicles, bringing this power right onto our streets. But these weapons aren't just about scattering a crowd. Their real target is something far more intimate: the human central nervous system itself. The effect is immediate and completely overwhelming. The ADS shoots out a focused beam of energy that creates this intolerable burning sensation on your skin. The reaction to it isn't a choice. It's a deep-seated, involuntary command from your own body to flee. In all the tests, nobody has been able to stand it for more than a few seconds. And you have to understand, this isn't just about causing pain. The whole point is to hijack the body's own warning systems. The weapon sends a signal so powerful that the brain has absolutely no choice to react, completely overriding your conscious thoughts. Now, here's the kind of insidious genius of the design. The radiation only penetrates a tiny fraction of a millimeter into your skin, just enough to light up all your pain receptors. The moment you step out of the beam, the pain completely vanishes, leaving little to no evidence of injury. It's maximum deterrence with minimum accountability. But the technology goes even further than just pain. There's something called the microwave auditory effect. It uses pulsed energy to create sounds inside a person's skull, totally bypassing the ears. A target can hear clicks, buzzing, or even words that no one else can. And if this sounds familiar, it's because this exact effect is a leading explanation for that mysterious Havana Syndrome that's been affecting U.S. diplomats all over the world. The desire for this kind of influence isn't new. In fact, governments have been chasing after technologies to control human behavior for more than 70 years. You can actually see a clear progression over the decades. It started pretty crudely back in the 50s with the CIA's MKUltra projects. After those secret experiments got exposed in the 70s, the whole idea became more formalized in the 90s under the DoD's non-lethal weapons policy. And now, you've got massive projects like the Brain Initiative, where the goal is literally to map the human brain, creating the perfect knowledge base to influence it with pinpoint precision. Senator Kennedy's testimony back in 1977 confirmed that these weren't just a few rogue operations. Nope. They were extensive programs that involved respected institutions, all of them conducting experiments on American citizens without their knowledge or consent. It really set a dark precedent for what the state was willing to do in the name of control. So what happens when this long, secret history of control collides with 21st century technology?
Well, you get a brand new domain of conflict, neurowarfare. As one analyst put it, the brain is the next battle space. And that's what this is. It's the strategic use of neuroscience to remotely influence a person's mind, their capabilities, and ultimately their behavior.
The consequences are pretty chilling to think about. Individual dissidents can be targeted, made to feel sick or confused with zero evidence of an attack. Entire protests can be neutralized deniably. But it goes even deeper. Imagine targeting a political leader to cloud their judgment, or manipulating social groups to sow chaos. These weapons bypass armies and borders, and they target the human mind directly. This quote from a neuroscientist named John Norcine, who worked on these very concepts, it just says it all. The potential exists to shape a person's conclusions before they are even consciously aware of them. And his own postscript was just as chilling. The ethics don't concern me, but they should concern someone else. When a state can silence its critics without firing a single shot, without leaving a bruise, and without anyone even being sure an attack ever happened, it has achieved a level of control that past tyrants could only dream of. It's the power to enforce obedience without that messy public spectacle of oppression. And that leaves all of us with a final, pretty sobering question. Democracy is built on the foundation of free will, the right to think, to speak, and to assemble freely. If technology can now target that will directly, what's left to defend democracy?